week 21 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. The first hitter, Dylan Cruz of the Washington Nationals. So this national team finally called Cruz up if they took an Alex Cole injury to get Cruz. So Cruz was tearing it up all season in AAA. He's a 2020 threat, no doubt about it. Number 4 prospect in all Major League Baseball, and he was the number 1 prospect in the national system after James Wood got called up early in the season. So Dylan Cruz, he's coming up for this national team, and we'll see what he does in his debut. He hasn't played yet, but I think he can help fantasy owners. Like I said, he's got 2020 potential, even though there's only a month left of the season here. But Cruz can help in a big way, and he's already been added in a decent amount of fantasy leagues out there right now in 72% of fantasy leagues. If you want stolen bases, you want some batting average, you want some underrated pop, I think Dylan Cruz could give that to fantasy owners. And I believe, in my opinion, he'll bat in the top half of the lineup. But we'll see what happens when he makes his Major League debut. Is Dylan Cruz coming up? So right now, since he's out there in 72% of fantasy leagues, and like I said, one of the big blue chippers to come up this season. Going into the year, the top prospects with James Wood, Junior Caminero, Paul Skianes, Dylan Cruz, and now Cruz is up. And I think this kid can help fantasy owners down the stretch. Like I said, stolen bases, batting average, and some underrated power he could bring for owners. I would go out there and get him this week. The next hitter, Johanski Noel of the Cleveland Guardians. Noel, he's been solid since he's been called up to the major leagues, even though he's not been playing every day for this Guardian team. On the year, 11 home runs, 22 RBIs, 17 runs scored, 266 average, and a 331 on-base percentage. And that's only in 109 at-bats for Noel, so that's great, obviously. And over the last couple weeks, on a tear with the power, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 333 average, and a 421 on base. So like I said, Noel, just every day he's got to play for this Guardian team. He's playing about 5 days a week, but they just don't have him in there every day as Noel. And I think this Guardian team, they need some pop, more pop in that lineup. So Noel qualifies first, third in outfield. He has great versatility. I know his defense hasn't been good, and that's a reason he probably don't play every day. But right now, I would give him an ad. August 20th at the Yankees, 2 for 6, 2 runs and RBI. August 21st at the Yankees, 2 for 3, a homer and RBI. August 22nd at the Yankees, 0 for 3. And August 24th versus Texas, 3 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. So like I said, versatility is there for Noel. Power, obviously, he's there with 11 home runs in 109 at-bats. And while he's out there in a decent amount of leagues, it's 79%. Fantasy owners should go out there and get him. Like I said, these type of players could be league winners at the end of the year, where people aren't paying that much attention for whatever reason to the waiver wire. And then a guy like Noel comes out of nowhere and could carry you in RBIs and home runs. The next hitter is Ernie Clement of the Toronto Blue Jays. So we know at the deadline, this Blue Jay team, they flipped pretty much their whole roster, and they're going with the young players, and they got a decent haul in most of these trades. Clement, he's been in the system all season, qualifies at second, third, and short, and plays every day for Toronto. And on the year, 10 home runs, 43 RBIs, 35 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, a 268 average, and a 291 on base. So like I said, he's been on the team up and down all years, Clement, but ever since the deadline, he's gotten the everyday job. And the last month, 4 home runs, 19 RBIs, 11 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 294 average, and a 325 on base. So the power's come on over the last few weeks here for Ernie Clement. And like I said, with good versatility for this Toronto Blue Jay team of fantasy owners, second, third, and short, especially second and short, weaker positions in fantasy baseball. He's a great ad. August 19th versus the Reds, 1 for 3, a homer and RBI. August 21st versus the Reds, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs. August 22nd versus the Angels, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. August 23rd versus the Angels, 1 for 4, an RBI. And August 24th versus the Angels, 0 for 4. So like I said, Ernie Clement playing every day for this Toronto Blue Jay team. He's making the most of his opportunity now, where he's in and out of the lineup as a backup for the most part early in the season. But right now, while he's playing great baseball and he qualifies at 3 positions, especially second and short, like I said, he's one of the better ads this week. The next hitter, Joey Bart of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Joey Bart's been a big surprise for this Pirate team, where San Francisco's given up on one of their former top prospects and thought he would be a great replacement and possibly be the next franchise catcher like Posey was the Giants. But obviously that didn't come to fruition, and the Pirates made a deal for him early in the season. On the year, 12 home runs, 38 RBIs, 32 runs scored, a 273 average, and a 349 on base for Bart. And over the last month, one of the better hitters in the league. 6 home runs, 18 RBIs, 20 runs scored, a 315 average, and a 376 on base. So sometimes these top prospects, they just don't pan out with all the pressure and hype with their original organization. Then they get traded to another team, and a change of scenery, what they need. And that's exactly the case with Bart. August 20th at Texas, 0 for 4. August 21st at Texas, 1 for 3. August 22nd versus Cincinnati, 0 for 3, a run, an RBI. August 23rd versus the Reds, 2 for 4, 2 runs, an RBI. And August 24th versus Cincinnati, 0 for 3 with a run. So Bart batting third or fourth for this Pittsburgh Pirate team. Catcher, we know, is a weak position in fantasy baseball, even though the position's been getting better over the last few weeks here. And Bart is still out there in 61% of fantasy leagues. Is a solid ad this week, and like I said, he's playing every day. He's in a prime position in the order for this Pittsburgh Pirate team, and he's producing good numbers. The next hit is Cole Keith of the Detroit Tigers. So Keith came out of the gate slow this season with injury and underperforming, but he's definitely picked it up over the last month of the season. On the year, 12 home runs, 48 RBIs, 46 runs scored, 7 stolen bases, a 260 average, and a 310 on base. And over the last couple weeks, 1 home run, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a stolen base, a 348 average, and a 362 on base. I know his on base batting average isn't good for Cole Keith, where he's a free swinger, looks like, for this Detroit Tiger team, but he's showing pop. He's getting on base right now. And like I said, this Tiger team's out of it, so they're playing all the young players. And Cole Keith's batting anywhere from 3rd to 5th every day for this Tiger team. August 21st at the Cubs, 1 for 5. August 22nd at the Cubs, 2 for 4, run. August 23rd at the White Sox, 1 for 4, an RBI, a stolen base in that one. And August 24th at the White Sox, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. So Keith out there in 67% of fantasy leagues, qualifies at second and third base, good versatility. And this time of the season, these young players play every day, and they could help fantasy owners in a big way. I know they don't have a lot of experience. I know Keith totally this season, the numbers haven't been great. He's come on as late here as Cole Keith, and I definitely would give him an ad this week. The next hitter, Michael Toglia, the Colorado Rockies. So Toglia, he's been on the radar since the All-Star break now for fantasy owners, and he's got legit power. Is the switch hitting first baseman on the season, 21 home runs, 46 RBIs, 49 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, a 225 average, and a 311 on base percentage, and only 285 at bats to have 21 home runs is very impressive for Toglia. Qualifies at first and outfield, and obviously all his home games are at Coors Field. And over the last couple weeks, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 10 runs scored, a stolen base, a 333 average, and a 469 on base percentage. So Toglia is definitely getting things going over the last few weeks here. And like I said, one of the better power hitters this season in terms of home runs per at-bat in the league. August 20th at Washington, 0 for 3. August 21st at Washington, 0 for 3. August 22nd at the Nats, 1 for 2 with a run. August 23rd at the Nats, 1 for 4. And August 24th at the Yankees in that one, 2 for 3, a homer, an RBI, 4 runs scored. So he walked a whole bunch in that ball game at the New York Yankees. And Toglia, like I said, he's got that switch hitting ability. He's got big time power, and to play half your games at Coors Field as well is a huge factor. The thin air and the ball flying out. Toglia is a great ad this week. Like I said, he's not going to give you really batting average, but if you want power and RBIs, he's definitely going to give that to fantasy owners. Available right now, 68% of fantasy leagues. Next hitters, Adrian Del Castillo of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So since Moreno's been out, Castillo's been called up, and he's been playing good baseball for this D-back team. 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a stolen base, a 333 average, and a 391 on-base percentage, and only 42 at-bats. Available right now is Castillo in 80% of fantasy leagues. And if you need some power and a catcher with upside who's showing batting average, especially coming off a 6 RBI game as well a few games ago, he's an ad this week. Last few games for Del Castillo: August 19th in Miami, 2 for 4, homer, 6 RBIs, a stolen base. August 21st in Miami, 2 for 3. August 23rd at Boston, 1 for 5 with a run. And August 24th at Boston, 0 for 1. So Castillo's been a nice fill-in for Moreno. And this Diamondback team, they've been on fire of late as well. Winning 5 games in a row is Arizona. In the last couple months, they've really jumped up in the race one of the worst teams in the league, and then in first place in the wild card. And Castillo's been a big part of it. So right now, while he's out there, 80% of fantasy leagues, I would give Castillo an ad this week. And next hitter, David Peralta of the San Diego Padres. So David Peralta, he's been a fill-in for Fernando Tatis over the last few months here, and he's been playing good baseball as Peralta. On the year, 6 home runs, 23 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 277 average, and a 340 on base for the veteran Peralta. But the last month is where he's gotten things going. 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 15 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 316 average, and a 372 on base. So Peralta, he could give you batting average. Some underrated power is David Peralta, and he's batting in the 7th spot in a great lineup with the San Diego Padre team. And just the only thing, he's not going to verse lefties much is the veteran Peralta. But besides that, playing every day and making the most of his opportunity. August 20th versus Minnesota, 1 for 4 in RBI. August 21st versus Minnesota, 0 for 3. August 22nd versus the Mets, 2 for 3, a run, a stolen base. August 23rd versus the Mets, 2 for 3, a run. And August 24th versus the Mets, 0 for 1. So like I said, if you need a hitter who's going to give you some batting average, some underrated pop at times, but mostly the average and a stolen base here and there, I think Peralta can help fantasy owners in those deeper 14-team leagues or deeper. Available right now is Peralta in a bunch of leagues at 87%. That I look at, it's Joey Loperfido of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Loperfido, he was in the Kikuchi deal at the deadline, and I like the deal a lot for the Toronto Blue Jays. They got Loperfido, got Willie Wagner, and you got Jake Loss as well in the deal. So Loperfido, we know he's got major power, especially in the minor leagues. He had over 25 home runs on the year, 4 home runs in the majors, 20 RBIs, 20 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 243 average, and a 295 on base, but now getting everyday at-bats over here with this Toronto Blue Jay team. He's made the most of his opportunity, especially the last couple weeks. 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a stolen base, a 387 average, and a 424 on base percentage. So if you need some power and someone who's been hitting for a good batting average, especially over the last few weeks, I think Loperfido could bring that to fantasy owners, getting the everyday job finally for a team where in Houston it was a lot of platooning and up and down from the majors and minors. August 20th versus the Reds, 2 for 3, 2 runs scored. August 22nd versus the Angels, 2 for 3 with a run. August 23rd versus the Angels, 2 for 4, a homer and RBI. And August 24th versus the Angels, 2 for 4 with an RBI. So like I said, Loperfido every day in this lineup, anywhere from the 5th to the 8th spot in the lineup for this Toronto Blue Jay team. He's got major power. We saw it in the minor leagues, and he just needed an everyday opportunity. And obviously he has it with Toronto towards the end of the season here, where they sold off all their major pieces for the most part at the deadline and got one of the better prospects hitting the baseball in Loperfido. He's an ad this week, available in 93% of leagues. And the final hitter I looked at off the wire is Pete Crow Armstrong of the Chicago Cubs. So Armstrong, he's been up and down this season for the Chicago Cub team, but still 259 at-bats under his belt, 7 home runs, 31 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 23 stolen bases, a 220 average, and a 270 on base. But the last month of the season with more playing time, he's been better as Pete Crow Armstrong, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, 13 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 298 average, and a 344 on base percentage. So he's going to steal some bases. He's got some underrated power. He's one of the top prospects in the New York Mets system a few years ago, and he was traded for Javier Baez at that time. And he's got crazy speed. We saw him hitting inside the park homer the other day. Less than 20 seconds, he ran the bases in that inside the park home run. So if you need speed, stolen bases, some underrated pop, and a young prospect rising right now in Crow Armstrong, he's an ad this week. August 20th versus Detroit, 0 for 3. August 21st versus the Tigers, 1 for 2. August 22nd versus the Tigers, 1 for 4. A run, 2 RBIs. August 23rd at Miami, the inside the park homer in that one, 2 for 3, a homer and RBI, 2 runs scored. And August 24th at the Marlins, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs. Cub team, they're out of it. Obviously, 5.5, 6 out. They could make a run at the wild card spot, but I just don't see it. A lot of teams to jump and only a month left to make up all those ball games that they're behind. But Crow Armstrong, he's an exciting young player. I know the batting average is low this season, but like I said, the last couple weeks, he's starting to come around, and stolen bases is a given what he's going to give owners. And if the average and power could come with it, he can help fantasy owners in a big way. Available in 93% of fantasy leagues. That's a few hitters I looked at off the wire for week 21 of the fantasy baseball season.